Hi, Froyal here. Welcome to my studio. In this art class, we're going to focus entirely on creating successful image transfers using the Gelli printing technique. So when doing an image transfer on the Gelli plate, I have found the easiest technique for me personally is to print out some image transfers from the copy shop. I have an office warehouse stationery, 5-minute walk from my house, so I go over there and I print things out. I usually print 2 of any one image because if I do a mistake, I've got another chance of getting it right, or if I really love it, I have another opportunity to make another one. These are from unsplash.com. I always use a royalty-free website where you have total permission to download the image and use it in your artwork. The Unsplash one, it can be for commercial use or personal use, so I like that freedom. I don't want to create something amazing, maybe even sell it, and then someone come back to give me a hard time over the royalties of the license of the image. So I just get royalty-free images. There is an abundance of incredible images on that website. There's also other websites, plenty of them. That's just the one that I'm particularly using at the moment. I'm going to do portraits for this particular art class because if I stick to one subject, it's just better to show you different techniques with the same subject. Of course, you can use anything for these image transfers, anything you could possibly dream up. Now, the thing with your images is that you want strong contrasting images. So there's a lot of strong contrast in the dark and the light patterns of this image. Black and white's easy to see where those strong contrasts are. But also this one, I like the textured pattern of the chair. That should print well. Something like that's going to print very defined. So be smart about your choices when you're starting because you want to set yourself up for success. I'm going to use these images, and first of all we're going to use our images on prepared painted backgrounds. That's just what I found to be the easiest way of doing this particular technique. So that backgrounds that I painted before, this one was 2 colors, and then I stamped a stencil on it for some textures. That one I've over painted on something previously stenciled, and then there's these other backgrounds with a couple of colors. This one, I really love those shapes that I've left in that. Or you can just do 1 color backgrounds as well. Just make sure you've got some ready to go because this is the best way to start with the image transfer process is to just use it. Put the image straight onto the gel plate and then onto a painted background. And I want to give you the best possible chance of being successful. So that's how we're going to start, and then we're going to move on to other techniques as well. So for this one, I think I might try this image here and see how she looks. And I think I'll put her on maybe this background here. So that is the plan. My greatest challenge with this particular technique of the image transfers is to not use too much paint. That's just what I have struggled with difficulties of making it work. I'm getting better, but I am a little heavy-handed with my paint, and that has been a problem. So make sure you pay attention to how much paint you're putting on your Gelli plate, because you can't have too much, but you need to have enough for it to create the print, and you want it to be as smooth and consistent as possible. Sometimes you do get the braille marks in it. I mean, it is a monoprint. End of the day, it's not going to be exact or perfect, and that's half the beauty of this particular technique. You never quite know how it's going to come out, even if all the variables are in your favor. Right, so you put the paint on the gel plate, put the image face down and you give it a really good firm rub. Little bit of a massage. You want to just transfer that image onto the plate. The areas that are light, the paper will absorb the paint so it doesn't show up on the plate, and the areas that are heavy in ink or dark will resist the paint and they will be left on the plate. Well, that's how the science goes anyway. Sometimes with colored photos, there's a little bit more variable tones and shadings that make it a little trickier, which is why you don't always quite know what you're going to get. All right. So let's see how she transferred. That's a pretty nice transfer. Pretty happy with that transfer. I'm just going to put it straight on the painted background and see if we can get a good print. Now there are lots of ways to do this, and I'm going to show you a few different ways you can try. Again, a nice firm rub. You can also brayer it to make sure it's got as much contact as possible with the paper. Good firm rub, and then let's see how she printed. Right, the image on the plate, the painted background, and there we are. Beautiful one color monoprint on a pre-painted background, and I think that's pretty nice. I love the texture of the seat that she's sitting on. I love that it has her beautiful facial expression printed quite well. It's even got some of the textural marks in her hair. That looks good. I think that's a very successful print. I'm pretty happy with that. And that to me is the most simplest way of doing this particular technique. And I really hope you have fun with this. Don't stress out if your first few don't work. You just need to find your groove and how it's going to best suit you. And hopefully you'll create something that you're really happy with. So I'm just using Payne's Grey, very affordable paint brand. Get a nice cover of, oopsies, a little bit of something on the plate there. So I'm going to try this one. That's printed pretty nicely. That's a nice transfer. So I'm going to try it on this paper, which is just a scrapbook paper from like a department store, Kmart, or the warehouse, or one of those cheap store areas in the store, like where they do the craft areas. I think it came in a pack of papers. It's fairly thin, it's not overly thick. It's not as thin as the rice paper I was using, but I just thought I'd have a try with some different papers and see how they print up. So hopefully this paper will absorb all that beautiful paint. And here we go. Well, that's a very nice and moody looking image. I like that. she came up nice. So that's just on like quite a thin scrapbooking paper, just affordable craft section of a department store. They come in those big pads, so very cost efficient, very nice effect. It's got these textural marks on the paper and that absorbed the paint quite nicely. The image transferred well. Pretty happy with that. That's a pretty successful print. I could quite happily put a mat around that and frame it, or I could stick it on a canvas and create a really nice, beautiful textural collage painting with it. Yeah, we'll have to see what I might turn that into, because I actually really like that. Right, so for this next technique, we're going to use the same printed images, but we're going to do a 2-color print on the gel plate. So instead of making the background already, we're just going to use white paper. This is actually a thin Chinese rice paper, and we're going to do the second color on the gel plate as well as the image transfer. One of my biggest challenges in this process is not putting too much paint on the gel plate. I have a tendency to be a little heavy-handed, so that is one of my challenges, is to not put too much paint on the gel plate. You've just got to practice and experiment and get used to the feel of your plate and the amount of paint that you're putting on to know whether or not you've put on too much or too little. Really, it is a highly experimental process, and don't beat yourself up if it takes you a few goes to actually get something that you're happy with, because that's the same for everybody. I think I'll try this one. We'll see how she goes. She's got a pretty nice look about her. Got the paint on, put the image on, give it a good rub, bit of a massage. I know, let's see how she goes. I've just used a very inexpensive Payne's Grey Reeves paint from Stationery Warehouse. It's not an expensive paint at all. My biggest challenge, like I said, is just not putting on too much paint. Okay, let's see how she's transferred. Oh yeah, see, that's nice. That's a really nice image transfer. So this is a monoprint technique. You can't use that again. It's one print, which makes beautiful, fantastic artworks that are unique. Now, the challenge of this particular technique, doing the 2-color monoprint, is this has to dry. So this image has to dry first before we put the background color on. I'm just giving my brayer a bit of a wipe with a baby wipe to make it nice and clean. And then I've got to decide what color I want to try for the background. So you just give it a few minutes to air dry. It has to be dry to the touch. This is my second biggest challenge of this technique, is waiting for it to dry. Okay, dry, baby, dry. What will I use for the background color? I think I might go with something pale, because that's a really nice, successful transfer there. Make sure you've got your paper ready, your brayer's all clean. I think that's pretty cool. Oops, no. Okay, baby, dry. And it's not quite dry yet, and now I've got fingerprints on it. Okay, so hopefully she's dried enough now. The thing is, if you don't wait long enough, you're gonna smudge your print, because she needs to be dried to put this next layer of the background color. It's It's highly experimental, this process of monoprinting. Don't get yourself stressed out if it takes you a while to get the hang of it, or if your first lots of prints don't work. Just keep trying, keep working on it, because you will get the hang of it if you don't give up. I'm trying not to leave brayer marks in it, but man, that's really quite difficult. I'm hoping that that's enough paint on there to get the print. It depends each day. The weather conditions make a difference to the transfer, if it's too hot or if it's not warm enough, or there's humidity in the air. If you have enough paint, or if you have too much paint or not enough paint. It's got a little bit of something on there. But you really don't stress yourself out about it. You just got to try again if it doesn't work. Oops, sorry about the camera shake. You can give it a bit of a brayer to press it a bit harder if you really want to make sure that that print transfers well. Okay, people, moment of truth. Ta-da-da-da-da-da. What do we have? Ah, she printed nicely. Yeah, so there we go. Image transfer, 2-color monoprint. You won't get a perfect print because, like I said, all those different factors create different responses. It's got a little bit of mark there from the brayer and rolling it. It doesn't matter. Her face is perfect. Even her hands have come up really nice. So I'm very happy with this print. I think she's very successful. I'm going to do a few more and just to show you the process again. But this is a 2-color monoprint on the Gelli plate with an image transfer using a pre-printed downloaded laser print image. Join me in my studio and watch the full art class on Skillshare. I would love to continue to create with you.